Hey guys, Skinnyboy here, bringing you a Malifaux battle report. So my 10 Thunders are taking on some cheeky little gremlins. Here we have the battlefield, where we'll run through a defining and placing of terrain real quick. Down to the bottom left-hand corner there, you can see some little tombstones or grave markers. Those are height 1 hardcover. And then the fence surrounding it is height 2 soft cover, which we decided is not climbable because of the little spiky bits on top. In the center of the board there, you can see two kind of swampy pools. We just play those as severe terrain. The fences just to the north of them are height 1 soft cover. The two forests we played as severe terrain, blocking terrain, and also soft cover if you're in it. In the backfield then, you've got those crypts and those other kind of grave markers or tombstones are height 2 hardcover. Then off to the right, you see the church and the kind of statue there. They're both hardcover around height 4, height 5. Didn't really come into play. This then is just another kind of side angle, so you can see a little bit better the backboard. And here's what we're going to be playing today. So we flipped up some flank deployment. Our strategy will be Headhunter. And our schemes will be Leave Your Mark, Take Prisoner, Undercover Entourage, and Public Demonstration. Now for these battle reports, I thought it might be interesting if I commentated without revealing my schemes that I've chosen. Obviously, I'll tell you when it comes up in play as we keep track of the victory points, but just to see if you can try and figure out what exactly I'm trying to do. And then obviously, if I can figure out what my opponent is trying to do, I'll let you guys know as well. So looking at this strategy in combination with the scheme pool, I'm looking for a fairly killy crew for Headhunter, but also something which provides a lot of flexibility in terms of movement. So something that I can push my guys onto head markers or push my opponent off head markers or pull them off head markers. In terms of schemes, it's kind of difficult to say right now. Take Prisoner is fairly dependent on what my opponent is taking. To some extent, the same with Public Demonstration. Like if he's going to take an aggressive master, I'm more likely to take that. But it's something I will consider with crew creation. I always like Undercover Entourage, particularly with flank deployment. It's usually not too hard to get up in there into their deployment zone. Keeping your master above, or your henchman. I usually take it on my master, but keeping them above half health can be a little bit tricky, but and then Leave Your Mark I think is a good one, again with flank deployment, because that center line is coming down in the diagonal of the board. There's a lot of room to get to a nice concealed place that your opponent's not going to get to, and you can just drop scheme markers, pick it up, drop scheme markers, and pick it up again. So bearing that in mind, this is my crew. So I've got Misaki with Misdirection, Disguise, and Recall Training. Sensei Yu with Wandering River Style and Recall Training. I have Shang. I have the Shadow Effigy. I have 2 Tengu. I have a Torakage, and I have a Performer. So I've gone for one of the killiest masters in the 10 Thunders faction is Misaki. I also just got her painted up this week, so kind of no matter what I flipped, she was going to be hitting the board. Misdirection with her I think is fantastic. Not so much to improve her survivability, but I find that it just absolutely kills the opponent's hand for her to get her assassination trigger then off that, or even if she doesn't assassinate, being able to make my opponent start discarding soul stones is a pretty big deal. As I said, this is my first time using her, so I decided it was kind of a coin toss between which limited upgrade to give her, either the Stalking Bysender or Disguise. I went with Disguise. I kind of like the idea of of her not being able to be charged. Like, it's really frustrating not being able to charge an enemy master. And then, of course, the good old Recall Training. I took Shang with her. I know there's a lot of debate on Shang. I think for 3 Soul Stones, you get an activation, you get a Russian Magic, and you get a heal for Misaki. So I don't understand why you wouldn't. Well, I guess I can understand why you wouldn't, but for this one, I think he's definitely a good buy. Of course, Sensei Yu with the Wandering River Style is there to Airburst, gain focus, then Mighty Gust to either speed my guys up or slow the opponent down. 2 Tengu, so they can maybe run off and run some schemes. I've got the Shadow Effigy. He's a great little 4-stone minion. He can put that buff onto Misaki, which gives her a 1-time give negatives to the attack flip for your opponent. And he's also a minion, so he can run around and drop some ski markers as well, or pick up heads if needs be. The Performer is fantastic because, of course, she can Siren Call to move my opponent's models in closer to me, or move my guys around, or and of course being able to take interacts while engaged makes her ideal for picking up heads. And then there's the Torakage, again, who's kind of a fantastic scheme runner, but also good at dealing with other scheme runners. His main utility, I think, in this crew is the fact that he's immune to disengaging strikes. So, again, if he's paired up with someone, say Misaki, and she drops a head, and I put it, 3 inches back, she's not going to be able to get out of, or she might not easily be able to get out of engagement to go pick it up. Well, he can just wander over there and pick it up himself. So that's my thinking there. My opponent has declared Ulix. Now, he's a fairly new player, just getting into Malifaux, and this is his first crew, but he's not just limited to the box. So he's got Ulix, and he took Husbandry, which is kind of the summoning upgrade, and the hunting bow upgrade for Ulix. He's got a Pickapult, he's got Old Major, he has a Hog Whisperer, a Slop Hauler. He's going to start off with 2 Piglets, and he's got Penelope and a Wild Boar. So looking at his crew, I really don't know what schemes he might have taken. I think the Pickapult lobbing some Piglets into my backlines to drop scheme markers for Leave Your Mark could be really, really good. Also, the Wild Boar and Penelope from the shadowing in a particular area could work out really, really well for that scheme as well. So I think he's got that one. As for the other one, I'm not really sure. Adding up his minion totals, I think it's unlikely that he has public demonstration. That would usually involve him using either the Hog Whisperer and like a combination of Piglets or the Wild Boar or something like that. So while it is a possibility, I imagine that those Piglets are actually going to get sacrificed pretty early on for ammo for the Pickapult. So I don't think that's going to happen. Undercover Entourage. Ulix can definitely be surprisingly speedy because he can hitch a ride with all those pigs. So it's definitely a possibility. Although once he sees my crew, I'm suspecting that he will not want to get Ulix up in the face of Misaki. So I think he's got Leave Your Mark, and then potentially maybe Take Prisoner, maybe Undercover Entourage. I don't think public demonstration. He won the flip to deploy first, and he made me deploy first, actually. So I split the table, as you can see. The blue line going down the center is approximately where the center line is, and I set up, as you can see here. And here's a close-up on how he set up. Now, just to give you a little heads up, on the far left there, there's the Hog Whisperer. Just slightly to the right of that is the Slop Hauler, and to the right of that is Ulix. And then I think everything else you should be able to see. You got Old Major in front. The 2 Piglets are surrounding the Pickapult. And over here on the right-hand side of the table, the Wild Boar and Penelope from the shadows in. So this is what the table looks like on turn 1, at the end of turn 1, in fact. So not a ton has happened. He won the flip for initiative, and he started off by sacrificing a Piglet to the Pickapult, and just kind of started spreading around the pain a little bit. So, like I said, he's a new player, so I did warn him that ranged attacks are not the best idea in Headhunter, because if he kills one of my guys, it drops a head on my side, I pick it up, and I'll get a victory point nice and easily. So he took that on board and decided to spread the pain a little bit, pinged off a couple wounds on Shang, actually managed to do severe damage to the Shadow Effigy, but he was saved thanks to Hard to Kill, and he put a hurt on one of my Tengus as well. That little X up there is just showing where that Piglet was sacrificed. And then he managed to summon another Piglet, actually, off of Old Major. Then moved Old Major up a little bit, which he then later realized was a mistake because he wanted to kind of hold Old Major back to do a little bit of summoning. But then he moved a Hog Whisperer up to provide him a little bit of support. My two Tengu just kind of ran off to the side there. They're going to go do schemes. No prizes for guessing which scheme I may have taken there. Misaki kind of just moves up a little bit and then charges that Hog Whisperer. Does a little flip and lands on the other side of them. She actually doesn't really flip very well, doesn't manage to do anything. My hand at this point had a couple of relatively high crows and a couple of low masks. So low mask for the misdirection, high crows for the assassination trigger. I also forgot to mention that I started off with a cache of 7 stones. So I'll be stoning for suits for most of this game. So at the end of turn 1, just looks like this, and we're 0-all. So going into turn 2, my opponent goes first. He wins initiative. He activates that Hog Whisperer, goes reckless, and then just starts laying the beat down on Misaki. So every time I manage to grab a mask trigger to get my misdirection on and throw the attacks off onto Old Major, and he's just pitching cards to try and hit Misaki, which ends up being a fairly good idea. The last attack, he manages to get the Dumb Luck trigger and puts quite a hurting on Misaki. She's down to about only 4 wounds left right now, even with a misdirection and soul stoning to prevent. But then Misaki gets to go. She pops her recall training, and then at the end of her activation, it looks like this. So with all her attacks, she's able to assassinate Old Major. She's able to kill off the Hog Whisperer, who's damaged because of his own dumb luck trigger. And I have got rid of all of my opponent's soul stones except for 2. He could have used those 2 to save Old Major, but at that point he thought, screw it, I'd rather have the stones for Ulix and for cards and stuff later on in the game. So we dropped our 2 head markers. So I threw 1 head marker back here, so my crew can just run over, pick it up, and 1 is in front there, kind of daring him to come in and try and pick that up. Of course, he can't charge Misaki, and if he tries to get in base contact with that head marker, Misaki will be engaging whoever gets in there. This then is just the rest of the turn. So if you look at the top, there are a couple of ski markers. He gets to drop 1 whenever he sacrifices 1 to the Pigapult. So those are going to become a War Pig, spoilers, a little bit later. The Pigapult takes aim and manages to kill one of my Tengu down there towards the bottom of the board. You can just barely see that head marker poking out from underneath that archway there. His Piglet runs up and just engages Misaki, tries to take a swing at her once, misses. Then Ulix moves in because he wants to try and pick up that head. Of course, he can't because he's engaged, but he's able to use his, I think it's called a prod, action to make the Piglet attack Misaki another couple of times. But Misaki manages to dodge them. Shang just runs over and sacrifices 1 of his 2 remaining wounds to heal her and manages to heal her up 3 damage, which was very nice. I have 1 Tengu who ran over to this side of the board and managed to place a ski marker. The Shadow Effigy cast, what's that ability called again? Remember the mission, so that he will drop a ski marker at the end of his activation. And then I'll pick that up to score for Leave Your Mark. The Torakage, you can see those 2 green arrows there. He got pushed over by Sensei Yu, picked up had to finish move, then picked up the head marker that came out of Old Major, and then I wasn't really sure where I wanted him, so I used the Performer's Siren Call to just kind of pull him back. The Performer earlier on in the turn was charged by the Wild Boar, but fortunately her manipulative was a little bit too good for that guy to get past. Earlier on in the turn as well, the Wild Boar, or in turn 1 I should say, the Wild Boar dropped a ski marker over on the other side of the church, so that will be picked up at the end of the turn for for leave your mark for my opponent. So there you go. There's just another shot of the board. You can see that head marker in the archway there a little bit better. At the moment, it is 2 points for the 10 Thunders and 1 point for the Gremlins. So this is what the board looks like at the end of turn 3. We're down the bottom left-hand side here. So that shadow effigy is just running over and taking the place of where that Tengu was. The Tengu flew over the fence and made contact with the other Tengu's head, but didn't have enough AP to pick it up this turn. And I kind of made a bit of a mistake here because I had the power to get him into a position where he could have done that, but I kind of screwed it up. But I managed to fix that by activating Sensei Yu. He Mighty Gusted the Torakage out of engagement, and then he airbursted him out of engagement, and then he used Mighty Gust to push him into base contact with the Tengu head marker, and of course gave him fast. And then because he was fast, he was able to charge the piglet that was originally engaged with Misaki. That green X there in the center of the board, that's where Shang used to be. Shang gloriously sacrificed himself for Misaki, using his last wound up to heal her, and healed her another 3 damage. So she's gone from having 8 wounds on her back down to only having 2 wounds on her. So she's kind of sitting pretty. The Torakage, like I said, he charged that piglet, couldn't do anything against it. The only reason why that died is because the Pigapult took a look at him and decided it was worth trying to randomize into combat. Unfortunately, he hit his own piglet and killed it. You'll notice then that there's a war pig where there was no war pig before, so Ulix managed to get out of the engagement with Misaki and summoned up that bad piggy there. Misaki really didn't want to deal with that, so she just went ahead and charged the Slop Hauler. Again, on this turn, she didn't really do anything. She put a couple wounds on him, but she ended up activating before the Slop Hauler, so the Slop Hauler just healed himself up again. Nice and easy. And then in the bottom of the right, that one performer is just, again, hanging out. Yeah, there she is. She's just like Disney princessing this hardcore. She's got Luna. Penelope has joined the fight now as well. Penelope is passing her manipulative tests a little bit better than the wild boar, but she's not landing any hits. I think maybe she's taken about 2 wounds at this point, but she's not doing what I wanted her to do, which is pick up heads, but she's tying up a wild boar and Penelope, so I can't really complain. And of course, while they're there, they're not dropping scheme markers, so he's not getting points for leave your mark. And here's just another look at the board over here and up here. So Misaki's maybe a little bit difficult for you to see, so you can just see she's planted herself in there between the Slop Hauler and the Pigapult. That is a bad place to be a Torakage if you happen to be there. That war pig is no joke. And that blue line is just kind of an approximation of where my opponent's deployment zone, if there's any reason why that you might want to figure out where that is. Hint, hint. So at the end of turn 3, I'll get another point for picking up a head and another point for leave your mark. And the Gremlins are still on 1 point. So this is the end of turn 4. So what happens here is let's go from the bottom up. So little shadow effigy, he's just hanging out in his corner. He's happy, nothing's threatening him. He's just going to drop a scheme marker, pick up a scheme marker every turn for leave your mark. Tengu wants nothing to do with the war pig, so he's just going to flap his way up the side of the board there, just in case Misaki needs regen cast on her or anything like that. Sensei Yu moves around the fence there and decides he wants to try and punch Penelope, but fails. At this point, I'm getting out-activated by 1 because I went first. So my opponent was getting a little bit frustrated about how to deal with this performer. So I mentioned to him, like, hey, that manipulative goes away if she activates. So you can out-activate me. You can ensure that your wild boar will go after my performer, and that way you can hit her. So he thinks, yeah, this is a great idea. So we do the rest of our turns, and I'm down to my last activation, which is of course this performer. So I think, you know what? We'll risk it. We'll try and siren call the wild boar, hoping to get the ram trigger, which is if the enemy ends the push in base contact with the performer, it gets paralyzed. And I flip the red joker for the attack. So that boar is paralyzed. In the center of the board, the Torikage says, "What the hell?" And tries to charge the. He charges the war pig, whiffs incredibly, and then just gets smacked down. So you can see there's a second head marker up there. Up the top, though, Misaki just has a brilliant turn. So she starts off. I'm burning through my stones left, right, and center here, but she gets an assassination off on... Again, I activate Misaki last so that my opponent has used up most of his hands, and he's burned stones, the remainder of his stones, on cards at this point. So Misaki gets the assassination trigger off on the Slawhauler, gets the assassination trigger off on the Pigvault, so screw your armor 5, and then she just walks around to hide cowardly behind that little crypt there. Ulix is just kind of moving up so that he can pick up a head marker. Yeah, there's that down there. She is just being an absolute star of this game. Not really doing much in terms of strategies or schemes, but she's just really holding up that flank. And I think my opponent got a little bit tunnel visioned with trying to kill her. Probably should have just said screw it, run the wild boar away and started dropping ski markers for leave your mark. Yep, that's up here. You can kind of get a better idea of where Misaki is. She does not want to mix with that war pig. Of course, she can't be charged, so she's fairly safe where she is. So then we go into turn 5. So not a ton of stuff happening here, just a little bit of wrap up. The most interesting thing happened with the performer. So the performer finally went down to that wild boar, and she dropped a head. So then Sensei Yu had the cunning plan of he's going to drop his recall training, and then he is going to airburst the wild boar away. So it works when the wild boar gets pushed away. He declares the winded trigger, so he gains a focus condition. Now all he has to do is get out of Penelope's engagement so that he can lower his focus condition by 1 to perform the 1 AP interact action, which would be to pick up the head. So he walks all the way over the other side of Penelope. We go to do the disengaging strike, and even with the positive to all his flips because of recall training, Penelope is able to lock him down, and we can't pick up that final head. So he's just got that one focus on him, which is lost. In the previous turn, the wild boar had picked up a head, or Ulix had picked up a head, and they just go ahead and pick up the second head, and the wild boar, or not the wild boar, sorry, the war pig moves down a little bit. To just in case we go an extra turn, he can get some charges off on, say, Sensei Yu, or possibly the Shadow Effigy. Speaking of that guy, he's still over here. He's just dropping ski markers, picking up ski markers. And then towards the back of the board, you can just make out where that Tengu is behind the forest. And Misaki is still hiding out behind that crypt in my opponent's deployment zone. So at this point, I will reveal that I had Undercover Entourage on Misaki, and because of Shang's wonderful, wonderful healing, she's back up to above half health. I think she's only taken 2 wounds at this point, so I'll score an additional 3 points for that. So at the end of the game, it finishes up 8 points for 10 Thunders and 3 points for the Gremlins with the last 2 heads in the last 2 turns. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed. A couple things I wanted to get some feedback on if you guys wanted to post some comments below. Did you like it? What you did like, what you didn't like? In particular, I'm wondering what your feelings are on me not revealing what schemes I took. Would you prefer to have my commentary as I'm thinking through my schemes, what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to achieve, or is it a little bit more entertaining and fun for you guys not to know what I'm trying to do and try to figure it out yourselves based on what my moves are? But any other comments to try and improve the battle reports are welcome. So thanks very much, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.